Hey everyone. Since Godzilla Minus One is out in select theaters now, I figured it's a good time to update my Godzilla ranking. Now, I will not be including 1956's Godzilla King of the Monsters or Godzilla 1985, since those are just the American versions of the original Godzilla and the Return of Godzilla, respectively. Now, those are the only two where they were altered and additional footage was added, but still, I'm not counting them. They can be lumped in with the Japanese versions. So, even without those, that still leaves 37 movies. And, spoiler alert for everything, including Minus One. Starting off way down at the bottom. My number 37 is Godzilla 1998. As a monster movie, this one's actually okay. The CGI holds up relatively well, even if the rendering quality doesn't. And Zilla's design is actually pretty cool. Also, Jean Reno is fucking great. Unfortunately, this isn't just another monster movie, it's a Godzilla movie, and in that regard it is a failure. Much like Weapon 11 in X-Men Origins Wolverine, the monster design would work for an original monster, but it's an insult to Godzilla. Also, hilariously, it's actually less plausible than the original Godzilla design. Like, they were trying to go more realistic, and they ended up creating something less realistic. There's a reason that Toho bought the rights to it, rebranded it Zilla, and put it in Final Wars just to have the real Godzilla kill it with the greatest of ease.
Where'd he go?
Get together, guys. Prepare to fire.
Echo 4, ready.
Echo 2, ready.
Fire! I think we got him.
Also, the CGI isn't the worst, but Zilla definitely changes size multiple times throughout the movie. The writing is bad, the acting is mostly bad. Apparently the mayor and his crony were meant to be a middle finger at Siskel and Ebert, who had torn Roland Emmerich's previous movie to shreds. But apparently in their review for this movie, Siskel and Ebert told Emmerich, look, if you're gonna put us in your crappy movie as an insult, at least kill us off. Obviously not those exact words, but you get the idea. My score is 1 out of 5. Number 36 is All Monsters Attack, aka Godzilla's Revenge. Out of all the movies in the franchise, this one is the most heavily aimed at kids, and it suffers for it. All of the monster stuff happens in a kid's daydream, and the rest of the movie is a kid getting kidnapped and then escaping. Oh, and because it's a daydream, baby Godzilla sometimes shrinks down to human size and talks to the kid. It sucks.
Hi! なんだ、君か。
何してんの？
友達がいなくてつまんないやん。
じゃあ僕と同じだ。
君何しに来たの？
だってこの前ゴジラの背中に乗せてやるって言ったじゃないか。
あ、そっか。今どこにいるかな？
いつも一緒じゃないの？
あんまりそばにいると怒るんだ。
どうして？
何でも一人で戦いってさ、一人で生きる練習しろって言うんだ。
へえ、厳しいな。
あ、8だ。行こう。
That being said, at least the monsters are practical, the action is okay, and the movie does try to send a good message to kids about standing up for yourself. I guess that's something. However, it ruins that message at the end by having the kid turn into yet another bully. My score is 1.5 out of 5. Number 35 is Godzilla Raids Again. This was the follow-up to the 1954 classic And what a disappointment it was. The production was rushed and it shows, the plot is thin, and the script feels half-assed. There's so much goddamn narration in this movie that it feels like it might as well be a documentary. With that being said, this is the first appearance of Anguirus, the most underrated kaiju of them all, and there's some decent action, and the acting is fine, so that's something.
あいつはアンギラスだ。アンギラス。
My score is 2 out of 5. Number 34 is Ibira, Horror of the Deep. This is a weird one. It was originally supposed to be a King Kong movie, and you can tell. Godzilla has many of Kong's traits, including an attraction to the female lead. Mothra's here, and there's some pretty good action, but ultimately this one is kind of forgettable. Like, to the point where I don't really have anything else to say about it.
Call headquarters immediately. Tell them to send help.
The score is 2.5 out of 5. Number 33 is Godzilla vs. Hedorah. This is another weird one. It is a very admirable anti-pollution message, but it's so in your face about it that you'll probably stop caring by the hour mark. And you can tell this was from the early 70s because it feels like the filmmakers were on acid. There are a ton of trippy visuals here. Hedorah is a decent enough villain, and we get some cool action. Plus, we get Godzilla defying gravity and fucking flying. That's worth an extra star on its own. The score is 2.5 out of 5. Moving on up. Number 32 is Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, 31 is Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, and 30 is Godzilla the Planet Eater. I don't have a lot to say about these animated Godzilla movies, so I'm just lumping them all together. They're all pretty good movies, but they're not very good Godzilla movies. The animation is beautiful, the plots are solid, the voice acting is pretty good, and the action scenes are pretty good. Apparently, this is an unpopular opinion, but I think they get better as they go. Each sequel has slightly better writing and animation than the movie before it, and each sequel also has more Godzilla than the one before it. My score for all of them is 3 out of 5. Number 29 is Godzilla vs. Megalon. This is another weird one. It was originally supposed to be a Jet Jaguar movie, but the studio wasn't confident in that idea, so they added Godzilla. It's just a shame he doesn't show up until an hour into the movie. It's geared towards kids, so naturally there's an annoying kid character, and like most of the franchise, it focuses way too much on underdeveloped human characters. But the final fight is awesome, and the music is good, and the plot is coherent, so that's something. And also, I love the borderline bromance we get between Godzilla and Jet Jaguar. Plus, who can forget the gravity-defying drop kick? That shit is just cinema. My score is 3 out of 5. Number 28 is Godzilla 2000 Millennium. This is a pretty typical Godzilla flick. Humans are hunting Big G when a new monster appears and they have to work with him to beat it. Credit where it's due, Orga is a solid villain. The action scenes are pretty great, and I love when it tries to swallow Big G so he just blows its head apart from the inside. The acting is pretty good, the writing is good, music is good but not great. The score is 3 out of 5. Number 27 is Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. This one is also pretty standard, but it's done well. Space Godzilla is a pretty good villain, the acting is solid, and the action is great. The psychic stuff with Mickey in this timeline is pretty cool. Little Godzilla's here, and he's also pretty cool. And Mogira is badass. The score is 3 out of 5. Number 26 is Son of Godzilla. You know how in Bob's Burgers, when Bob's family does something embarrassing and he's just like, oh my god.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh god. Oh my god.
So that's what Mom means when she says she's going to shuck an oyster.
Oh my god.
That's this movie, only Bob is Godzilla.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Watching Big G try to teach his son to be like him is genuinely adorable. There's also a human plot where they're testing out a freeze ray or some shit. It's interesting enough. The new monster, Kamacuras, is pretty cool. The action is solid, and the ending is actually a little heartbreaking. My score is 3 out of 5. Number 25 is Godzilla Final Wars. This one is apparently a fan favorite, but for me it's just good. My main problem is that it feels like it's simultaneously ripping off The Matrix with the human fight scenes and the X-Men with the whole mutant thing. Also, it's only 125 minutes, but it feels longer. With that being said, it's still a ton of fun. We literally get more monsters than ever before, and Godzilla wipes the floor with all of them with a little help from Mothra. And best of all, like I mentioned earlier, Big G kills Zilla with the greatest of ease.
Godzilla, huh? Okay, let me see what you're made of.
Can you say catharsis, boys and girls? My score is 3 out of 5. Number 24 is Terror of Mechagodzilla. This is one where the human drama was good on paper, but the end result doesn't do the movie any favors. It's not that bad, and the acting is pretty good, but it takes up too much of the runtime, and it ultimately feels undercooked. Big G and Mechagodzilla don't show up until late in the film, and the only interesting stuff before that is Titanosaurus destroying stuff. The final fight is great, though, and I absolutely love that. Especially since it's a 2v1, with Godzilla being the one. You don't get that very often. My score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 23. It's Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. This is yet another weird one. Humans are so desperate to defeat Godzilla that they create a fucking miniature black hole weapon. Seriously, how could anyone think that's a good idea? Or, a better question, what could possibly go right? Anyway, a big-ass dragonfly comes through, lays an egg that's actually a bunch of eggs stuck together, and then fucks off back through the portal. The eggs hatch and all hell breaks loose. The plot is decent enough, the acting is good enough, and the action is great. There's some iffy CGI here and there, but it's not awful. And I like... Well, okay, for one, the main villain here, the Megaguirus Queen, is a rare instance of a female kaiju. And I love that, unlike some of the other villains in this franchise, she is very much established to be a glass cannon. She can dish out the hits, but she can't take them. My score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 22 is Godzilla vs. Mothra. This is a fun one. Batra is a great villain, and Mothra is delightful as usual. And yes, I know it's a partial retread of Mothra vs. Godzilla, and I know you can see the wires at one point, but I don't care. I still love it. It's not great, but it's fun. The human drama is good but not great. The music is solid but not the most memorable. And I do love the interplay between the three monsters. The score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 21 is Godzilla vs. Kong. I hope all the people who complained about the last three MonsterVerse movies focusing too much on human characters are happy, because you're not allowed to complain anymore. Godzilla vs. Kong boasts some of the most epic kaiju action in the MonsterVerse so far, but the humans, new and returning, are so thinly written that they're basically just glorified plot devices. Alexander Skarsgård is the only actor whose character gets anything even resembling an arc. With that being said, this is a pretty satisfying payoff to the three-movie build-up we've had. The cinematography is fluid and dynamic, and unlike King of the Monsters, a lot of the action actually takes place in daylight, and it looks great. Junkie XL's musical score is great, although it pales in comparison to Bear McCreary's work in the previous film. The visual effects, overall, are the best we've seen in the MonsterVerse. The action is great overall, and the Hong Kong battle is one of the best action scenes in the MonsterVerse so far. And also, I love this incarnation of Mechagodzilla. It is one of the best versions of that character to date. My score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 20 is Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. This is one of the weirder ones. The time travel was definitely inspired by Back to the Future, and for what it's worth, it makes this movie stand out from the bunch, and even though it does ultimately lead to a plot hole. The plot is more complicated than usual, but it's still not hard to follow. The action is great, and the acting and musical score are both pretty good. I love Mecha King Ghidorah for as little screen time as he gets. He's awesome. Scores 3.5 out of 5. Number 19 is Godzilla Tokyo SOS. Now, this was part of the Millennium era where each individual film ignored all of the others and was simply a direct sequel to the 1954 original, except this one. This one was also a direct sequel to Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, and not only did it bring back Mothra, it made her solo movie officially canon. And that alone automatically makes this movie awesome. The fights are top-notch, the plot is solid, and I love the ending. Unfortunately, it's also a step down from Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. That movie's protagonist gets shipped off like 15 minutes in, and the replacement heroes are less interesting than she was. I absolutely love that they brought back the main character from the original Mothra, played by the same actor, but I also wish he'd been given more to do. My score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 18 is Godzilla vs. Gigan. This is a pretty typical Godzilla vs. movie in most regards, but this time he teams up with someone other than Mothra, so that's something. Anguirus is back, chronologically, for the first time since Godzilla raids again, and he's still pretty badass. He's basically the tank of the Godzilla universe. He can't dish out much damage, but he can take a lot of hits. And based on the timeline, he survived having his jaw broken by Mechagodzilla in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Now granted, that happens after this, but still, since that takes place before Destroy All Monsters, and he's fine in Destroy All Monsters, he survived having his jaw broken, and presumably it healed just fine. Anyway, Gigan is a highly impractical but very cool looking villain. Seriously, he has no hands and a belly saw. How does he do anything besides fight? Anyway, the 2-on-2 fight of Big G and Anguirus versus King Ghidorah and Gigan is great, and the human drama is at least interesting enough to not be annoying. Also, Corn Hippie, you will always be famous. My score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 17 is King Kong vs. Godzilla. This was probably the biggest crossover event of its era, and it mostly lived up to the hype. The monster suits are not great, but the action is solid, and the human characters are at least fun to watch. The titular fights are a ton of fun, and I like that they level the playing field by giving Kong electrical powers. Also, the bit of Kong being airlifted into battle on fucking balloons is hilarious and adorable, and I love it. I also love that this movie kind of satirizes various elements of kaiju movies of the era. It was definitely ahead of its time in that regard. My score is 4 out of 5. Number 16 is The Return of Godzilla. Apparently the 9-year gap between The Terror of Mechagodzilla and this movie didn't allow for much improvement in rubber monster suits. But aside from that, this is a solid Godzilla movie. It brings back the horror of the original, which is nice. The action is great, the musical score is great, the acting is solid, the writing is very good. I could nitpick some things here and there, but overall it's just a solid movie. The score is 4 out of 5. Number 15 is Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. This movie has some of the best action in Showa-era Godzilla. Unfortunately, the human drama is kind of a letdown. It's not awful, but it feels underdeveloped. Big G, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah all look great, and the fights are awesome, the music is great. But, like I said, the human drama just ultimately wasn't fleshed out enough. The score is 4 out of 5. Number 14 is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. This one gave us Fire Rodan. Enough said.
What's that power?
That is Radon's energy. Godzilla's brain is reconstituted.
What's that?
It's Radon's energy. It revived the brain.
My God! That isn't possible!
Okay, not really. I will talk about it a little. This is a solid entry in the Heisei series. The acting is solid. The action is great. This is one where Mickey doesn't really get much to do, but she's still a good character. I love everything they do with Baby Godzilla, and I like that this is... I don't know if this is the most powerful version of Mechagodzilla, but this is the biggest version of Mechagodzilla. At least out of the Japanese movies. I don't know if the MonsterVerse one is bigger or not. I'd have to look that. Actually, hang on. I can check. 120 meters. How many feet are in 120 meters? Okay. Okay, so to answer that question, this one is about 7 feet shorter than MonsterVerse Mechagodzilla. So it is the second biggest by a very small margin. Because according to the Godzilla Wiki, this one is 120 meters, or about 393 feet. And MonsterVerse Mechagodzilla is 400 feet. Anyway, my score is 4 out of 5. Lucky 13 is the Invasion of Astro Monster, aka Monster Zero. This one actually has a more substantial plot than most Godzilla movies, and here it mostly works. The pacing is good, the action is great, and the acting is solid. I love Big G's victory dance after they beat King Ghidorah the first time. Yeah, like I said, the human drama here actually works. That's why I consider this to be an improvement over Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. The human drama actually feels properly fleshed out. My score is 4 out of 5. Number 12 is Godzilla 2014. This movie is gorgeous. Seriously, the skydiving scene alone is just so well done. And I gotta give them credit for using music from 2001: A Space Odyssey in that scene. it fits so perfectly. I actually don't mind how little action there is because it allows for more build-up to the final battle, and that final battle is kick-ass. Like seriously, Godzilla just pulling open the Musho's mouth and spitting atomic breath down her throat is one of the greatest moments in cinematic history. Fight me. Now, yes, this movie does have some issues, but I don't think they're as bad as some people think. Ford Brody is a bit underdeveloped, but not that much, and I think Aaron Taylor Johnson does a better job than he gets credit for. I do think that they could have had a bit more kaiju action without sacrificing build-up, but they were exploring new territory here in terms of Godzilla movies, so I'll give them a pass. The score is 4 out of 5. Number 11 is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. This is not the best movie in the franchise, but it's one of the most entertaining. The monsters look amazing. Mothra is gorgeous. Rodan is badass. Ghidorah is terrifying. And Big G is just awesome. A lot of people complained that this movie focused too much on the underdeveloped human characters and not enough on the monsters. And to them, I say this. Welcome to the franchise, motherfuckers. This is par for the course. Anyway, the action is great. The acting is good. And Bear McCreary's musical score is dope. My score is 4 out of 5. Finally, we have reached the top 10. My number 10 is Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Like its sequel, this one has some of the best action in the franchise. And unlike its sequel, it actually has an interesting main character. Or rather, a more interesting main character. Kiryu is probably my favorite Mechagodzilla, and this version of Big G looks great.
Transport cables fully retracted. Flight Area 3 is pulling out.
Commence attack.
Roger. Rockets armed, firing. Missiles away.
Hit it with the masers. Do it now.
Roger.
The writing is solid, the musical score is one of the better ones in the franchise. I do think it's weird that they built Mechagodzilla over the bones of the old Godzilla, but thematically I think it works. I just also think it's weird as shit. My score is 4 out of 5. Number 9 is Godzilla Mothra... fuck it, number 9 is GMK. This is a pretty unique one. We get a pure evil Godzilla, we get a heroic King Ghidorah who is not under mind control, and Mothra, who is always a good guy, sides with Ghidorah for once. Neat stuff. The action is some of the best in the Millennium era and just the series as a whole.
Yuri! Yuri!
I love that the plot is something different this time around, where this is a version of Godzilla who is basically representative of like all the Japanese soldiers lost in World War II and angry. It fits with the movie's themes very well. This comes to us from, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Shisuke Kaneko, the man who also gave us the Heisei Gamera trilogy. And you can tell his fingerprints are all over this movie, and I love it. My score is 4.5 out of 5. Number 8 is Mothra vs. Godzilla. This one is an oldie but a goodie. The acting is great, the action is better, and the music is awesome. The human drama is actually better than the human drama in Godzilla vs. Mothra, and I love that they keep the stakes high by actually having Godzilla kill off adult Mothra and leaving it up to the baby Mothras to finish him off. The score is 4.5 out of 5. Number 7 is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. King Caesar really helps this movie stand out from the rest. He's such a unique monster. He's kind of an ape, but not like Kong, and he can redirect energy attacks with his eyes. Awesome. Unlike Terror of Mechagodzilla, the human characters are actually pretty well fleshed out, and the human drama actually works. It helps keep the audience invested when the monsters aren't on screen. The acting is solid, the monsters look great, the action is great for the time, the musical score is one of the best. My score is 5 out of 5. Number 6 is Destroy All Monsters. This one is just a classic. Evil aliens mind-controlling a bunch of monsters to attack, humanity freeing those monsters, King Ghidorah showing up. Classic. The action is great, the music is great.
怪獣はまだ見えません。一番乗りはゴジラかラドンかアンギラスか。まだ見えません。まだ、あ、見えました。遥か右下吉田町浅間神社の森越しにゴジラか。いや、ミイラです。ミイラが一番乗りです。そしてその後から怪獣の王ゴジラが現れました。今モスラが現れました。ゴジラの現れた同じ方向からモスラが現れました。今度はアンギラスです。左朝霧高原からアンギラスです。誠に壮観。アンギラスの後にはマンダ、バラゴン、ゴロザウルス、クモンガも参りました。続々とここ青木ヶ原のキラークの基地目指して進撃してまいります。
Movie as a whole is just great. The human drama is good enough. It's not the best, but it doesn't detract from the movie. Although I do feel like the final battle has just a little too much of some monsters just standing around. Although, I mean, okay, it is pretty realistic, because, like, they wouldn't all be fighting at once, necessarily, but still, I feel like it could have been done better. That doesn't change the fact that this movie is fantastic. My score is 5 out of 5. Number 5 is Shin Godzilla, aka Godzilla Resurgence. This is the first time a Japanese Godzilla has ever been portrayed solely by CGI, and it looks great. It is definitely the scariest looking version of Godzilla to date. And this movie is also a political satire, poking fun at all the bureaucratic red tape the Japanese government, and governments in general, have to cut through to get shit done. This movie has some of the best human drama in the franchise, and once you figure out who everyone is, you come to care about what happens to them. The action scenes, when we get them, are outstanding. And like the recent American movies, the CG monster allows for low-angle shots that just makes him look huge, which is something that classic Godzilla movies kind of lacked. I also like that there's realism involved. They go out of their way to make the military aspect of it realistic. We can't fire, there are civilians in the way. Alright, pull back and wait. Alright, open fire. Target the head, target the legs. They're not just gonna blast randomly, they're gonna be like, alright, we have to be tactical about this, we don't have unlimited ammo. Aim for the head, aim for the legs. It makes sense. Musical score is one of the best in the franchise, especially the operatic vocals when the B-2 bombers attack. And I love that this version of Godzilla isn't just a retread with the exact same powers as previous versions. Like, sure, his atomic breath looks different, but also, like, he can shoot it out of his back and his tail. That's pretty awesome. My score is 5 out of 5. Number 4 is Godzilla vs. Biollante. Biollante is definitely among the most unique Godzilla villains, and she's one of the reasons this movie works so well. She's also one of the few kaiju confirmed to be female, so that's cool. The human drama here is some of the best in the franchise, which is another reason this movie works so well. The writing is on point. The action is great, the monsters look awesome, the musical score is top-notch. The score is 5 out of 5. Number 3 is Godzilla, the original from 1954. This one is just a horror movie. Return of Godzilla and Shin Godzilla and a couple others had some of that horror. GMK had some of it. But this one just is so nihilistic and filled with dread. And it's part of why it works so well. The tension is great. And even though everyone knows about Godzilla now, the mystery still works. The acting is pretty great, especially for the time. The action scenes are surprisingly well done, even in the bits where Godzilla is a hand puppet. I mean, what is there to say about this movie that hasn't been said already? It's a classic for a reason. My score is 5 out of 5. Okay, moment of truth. Number 2 is Godzilla vs. Destroya. This one is special. Godzilla is a ticking time bomb on the verge of a radioactive meltdown. Meanwhile, a new monster shows up for him to fight. This is the one where Godzilla dies, and it's genuinely heartbreaking. You also have human drama that genuinely works. Destroya is such a unique villain. I absolutely love him. And I also love that he was created by the very same oxygen destroyer that killed the original Godzilla. It's very poignant. My score is 5 out of 5. Finally, my number 1 is Godzilla -1. This movie feels like an updated version of the original, and yet it doesn't feel like a retread. It adds in elements of some of the other entries in the franchise, and it has a genuinely great human story at its core. This movie succeeds where so many of the others fall short, in that it is primarily about the human characters, and the monster is just the villain. And it actually makes it work. Like, goddamn. Like in Shin Godzilla, Big G was again created with CGI. I don't know if any of it was practical or if it was 100% CGI. I haven't seen any behind the scenes stuff. But he looks amazing. The design looks like the classic Godzilla suits. It's like both in terms of overall design and also just proportions. However, the CGI allows him to have a much more expressive face than those suits could ever dream of. The music is a fantastic blend of old and new. The writing is top-notch, and pretty much all of the technical aspects are good, if not great. The score is 5 out of 5. Hey everyone, what's your ranking? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe and all that. If you don't like the video, tell me why. Try to be constructive. Then subscribe anyway. You'll be notified when I upload a new video, watch that one, and then tell me why that one sucks. Or maybe tell me where I've improved, whatever the case may be. I have a Patreon. So far, it's mostly me reacting to my old tribute videos, but there's some other stuff as well. And I have more planned for the future. It's 2 tiers. First tier is just you have access to the exclusive content, and the second tier is you can commission tribute videos. So that link is in the description. Check that out if you're interested. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times.